He shouts at the wolves, who look at him, and he shoots, trying to drive them away from the tiger. The wolves flee, and the protagonist says it will be okay. Then he realizes the state the tiger is in. It's too late. He's badly injured and won't last long. Howard caresses his head, remembering the happy moments he had with the tiger, and apologizes for being late. If he had arrived a little earlier, he could have saved his friend. The tiger looks at the protagonist, who is about to end the tiger's suffering. He says he'll miss his friend and, swearing revenge, he shoots. The protagonist seems disheartened, even while in the bathtub with Sabrina, and she notices. She asks if something happened, but he doesn't mention the tiger or the wolves, only stating that it's getting colder and more dangerous, and he asks her not to leave the mansion in the coming days. She agrees, mentioning the remaining work to be done in the greenhouse, and asks him to be careful outside. Who once pitted himself for lacking love, now that he has achieved what he wanted, refuses to let those wolves take away his happiness. He will do whatever it takes to keep them away from their home. The wolves run through the snow, attempting to catch a deer. Despite the agility of their prey, the wolves hunt in packs and coordinate their efforts to capture prey that cannot escape. After catching the deer, they call out to the rest of the pack, and as they run to eat, Howard, disguised in the deer's poncho for camouflage, shoots and hits one of the wolves, which falls agonizingly into the snow. Without mercy, the protagonist takes a hunting knife and finishes off the wolf. In the middle of the night, the protagonist wakes up, seemingly disturbed by the ongoing conflict with the wolves. Sabrina notices that something is amiss. She remarks that he seems distant and asks if something is wrong. However, fearing that she might find out about the wolves, he simply embraces her, reassuring her that it's nothing important. Although still somewhat suspicious, Sabrina remains silent, while the protagonist contemplates that there are still 3 wolves left. The next day, the wolves sense a threat and run to hide, and the protagonist is after them again. One of the wolves runs toward a bush and, as it approaches, sees another hidden wolf there. It runs toward the other wolf, and a shotgun barrel enters its mouth and fires. The others become alert after hearing the shot. Emerging from the bushes is Howard, wearing the deer's poncho and the skin of the wolf he had killed the previous day. The protagonist seems determined to annihilate all the wolves mercilessly. The 2 remaining wolves look at him from afar, surely also seeking revenge for their lost companions. The game reaches day 170, and it has been 10 days since the protagonist began hunting the remaining wolves. He is practicing his aim while thinking that he hasn't found any traces of the remaining wolves. He knows he can't be reckless, or he'll lose to the wolves, but only after eliminating all of them will he be able to have peace again. Howard hears Sabrina calling for him. She says they are going to have fish and roasted meat. Now she seems like a happy housewife with her culinary skills. The protagonist tells her that he will be traveling for a few days and won't be eating with her tonight. This guy doesn't know how to appreciate what he has. Sabrina looks at him with pity and says that he's hardly ever home. She asks if Howard is so busy that he can't even have dinner with her. Howard apologizes but says he has to finish some things to be at ease and walks past her. Sabrina, holding back tears, wants to know what could be so important. Since Howard is sure she wouldn't let it go if she knew about the wolves, he insists that it's nothing and leaves Sabrina behind, crying. 3 days later, she wakes up to a noise. There are boards outside the window. The noise she heard was Howard nailing them up. She goes outside and asks what he's doing. He says the cold is getting worse, so he's reinforcing. Sabrina says she never asked him for protection. Howard thinks she's joking and asks if there's food ready. She starts speaking seriously, saying he's treating her like anybody else instead of his partner. But he's stubborn and says she's wrong, adding that everything he does is to protect the house. Sabrina gets very angry and asks what's really going on, why he doesn't tell her anything. He falls silent and then says she can't help with what he's doing and to stay home. She becomes sad and just leaves quietly, while he plans to go to the hardware store to get nails. He puts on his camouflage clothes, saying the temperature keeps dropping, then drives his car to the store, lamenting fighting with Sabrina. In the store, the protagonist is looking for the tools he needs and happens to find, on a shelf, a diesel generator maintenance manual. He'll be able to use the generator again. Suddenly, the store's TV turns on by itself, catching Howard off guard. AI-63 appears, greeting him. She reminds the protagonist that there's only 1 week left for the game to end, shocking him. He must have forgotten that this reality had an expiration date. At the mansion, Sabrina sticks a note on the door and leaves with a suitcase, giving one last look before leaving her house, and we see the note she left, saying they both need some time apart and asking Howard not to follow her. At the tool store, the protagonist broke the TV. He must not have taken the news of the game ending well. When he turns to leave, the wolves appear, and the protagonist says he understands why the wolves are angry with him. The wolves start to approach the protagonist cautiously. Both know the danger they're facing. Feeling cornered, the protagonist runs out of the store, trying to get to his car, but his leg still hurts. He hasn't recovered from when he was buried in the snow. He's caught by the wolves, who knock him down and bite him. The protagonist manages to tear away the deerskin poncho that the wolf was biting and throw it away, then grabs his backpack to fend off the other. With the hunting knife, he manages to strike one of the wolves, but is bitten by the other on the back. He turns to defend himself and hits the wolf's head, but his knife breaks. The wolf seizes the opportunity to bite the protagonist, but receives a kick to the chest. Even with the broken knife, Howard attacks the wolf, which can't get up. With the knife handle, he starts beating the wolf until it stops moving. The protagonist grabs the bag and staggers away while we can see that even though very injured, the wolf is still alive. He remembers desperately asking if that world would continue to exist after the game ended. He wanted to know what would happen to Sabrina, wanted to stay there with her. He completely lost sight of the fact that all of that was just a game. The wolf struggles to stand up and bites Howard's hand. The protagonist says the animal really wants revenge, but that won't happen because he needs to protect Sabrina even if he doesn't end up with her. Meanwhile, Sabrina is driving somewhere. The protagonist tries to get into the car, but he's being attacked by the two wolves. He keeps trying to get in, and Sabrina's gun falls out of the glove compartment. He doesn't know how the gun got there, but at least now he has a chance to defend himself. He shoots and manages to scare off the wolves. The protagonist gets into the car, and the only thing he can think about is fixing the generator. He needs to give Sabrina a chance to survive at all costs. The oil tank is frozen, and Howard can't start it. He's very weak, and the wolves are waiting outside for him. Weak and tired, he passes out. Howard wakes up in a bed with his wounds bandaged. He asks Sabrina how he got home, and she says she found him with the broken car and brought him back. She thought he was dead when she found him. The protagonist wants to know if there was anything around when Sabrina found him, but she only found the bag he was holding. The wolves must have fled before she arrived. Upon hearing about the bag, he remembers the generator and tries to get up, but Sabrina stops him because he's still badly injured. Nevertheless, he doesn't stop and tells her that this is the last thing he needs to do. Sabrina gives in. She knows he won't listen anyway. In the garage, Howard focuses on fixing the generator, and his hard work pays off. Now the whole house is illuminated, and he seems proud that he succeeded. The protagonist shouts to Sabrina that they have light now. She is in the kitchen cutting meat, and doesn't seem excited about his accomplishment. Howard goes to the mansion's entrance, and notices a parked car. He wonders if this is the car Sabrina used to bring him back to the mansion. The car is damaged, with the airbag deployed. Something must have happened when Sabrina saved him. The protagonist approaches the car coughing. The wheels seem to be dirty with blood, and Howard finds a wolf's canine stuck in one of the tires. Surely Sabrina dealt with those wolves. Howard stands up and feels dizzy. He bends over, leaning on the car, coughing heavily. When he looks at his hand, he sees he's coughing up blood. He knows that if he doesn't find a doctor, he won't live much longer. Looking at the dent in the car, he imagines Sabrina must have hit a tree. Maybe he didn't realize the girl squashed the wolf with the car against the tree. He takes another look inside the car and then looks towards the mansion. He must have understood what really happened after he passed out. On the clothesline, we see two wolf skins hanging. In the mansion, the protagonist embraces Sabrina, thanking her for everything she did for him, and asks for forgiveness. She doesn't seem angry that he hid the story of the wolves and says she's making a wolf stew. He asks her to make a good dinner because they have a lot to do in bed, especially since the guy is coughing his guts out. The game only has 2 days left, and the entire city is frozen. Sabrina looks out the window and tells the protagonist that the storm has passed. He doesn't seem well, and she gets worried, asking if he's okay. He really looks awful and says he feels exhausted. Sabrina thinks it might be a cold and looks for medicine for him in a drawer, but the protagonist calls for her, saying it's not just a cold, the guy is dying. His words alarm her, but she tries to be positive, saying he has gone through many hardships since the beginning of the storm. It's a shame that an employee like him isn't recognized. If they were in the company, she would nominate him as the best employee of the quarter, and he thanks, almost powerless, his lovely boss and wife. Sabrina says she hasn't accepted marrying him yet, and hands him a glass of water to take the medicine.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on upcoming videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed it and share with your friends. See you in the next video. Bye for now.